There we go. We're live now.
Great. Thank you, Marissa. This is Chairman Mitchell. I'm calling the meeting to order then for the HCLC for January 22. And thank you for Marissa for putting all this together and pulling the agenda together. Thank you. This will be in a informational meeting. I don't believe we have a quorum. There's Mr. Herring.
Yep, we do have a quorum.
Great. All right. Well, then we can move ahead with approving the minutes from the last meeting. Anybody have any comments about them, or has everybody had a chance or an opportunity to review the minutes from the last meeting?
Should we do a roll call first?
All right. Marissa or Dana, if y'all would please do a roll call.
Okay, Miss Shakia Guest.
Present.
Dr. Lynn Aniti. Miss Sybil Talley.
Present.
Dr. John Herring.
Present.
Mr. Charles Mitchell.
Present.
Miss Carmen Howell Ferguson. Miss Elizabeth T. Miller. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Dr. Herring, would you have the opportunity there to open us with a quick invocation?
Yes, no problem. Father God, once again, thank you for allowing us to come together for the business of the city of South Fulton and for the task force of the Historic Preservation Society. These are the blessings we ask you in the name of our Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Dr. Herring. Now, has everybody had a chance to review the minutes? Any comments or modifications? I think we have, maybe there's one or two grammatical things on there. I'll get back with Marissa on making aware of those. Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
I move that we approve the said minutes.
Do I hear a second?
I second.
Motion.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Anyone disapprove? Thank you very much. And considering I don't think we have anything in the old business that actually won't be taken care of in this next presentation relative to the cemeteries and all, and or excuse me, as what we might be able to find out in this next presentation. So
Yes, sir. So I'll do a quick introduction. I'd like to introduce you all to Caitlin King. She works with the Economic Development Department, and she is also helping us with our Main Street program for Red Oak. As you know, Red Oak is a historic district. There's a lot going on there. And Red Oak recently received a new overlay to help with the design guidelines for the area at our December council meeting. And so Ms. King has been gracious enough to come to our meeting today to give us an overview of some of the economic development projects we're working on right now, but also to give us some feedback on research that we're doing for the historic Red Oak area of our city. So at this time, I'll pass it over to Ms. King.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm excited to be surrounded by people who also have a big love of history. I've been with the city now since basically beginning of June of 2021, and we've already started doing a lot of really cool work. One of the first things I wanted to do when I started in this role was get a good idea of the history of this area. The storytelling component of historic preservation and Main Street programs is so important to be able to tell folks, you know, why the area you're living is important, what has gone on here. And then something that I really wanted to focus on in this area, you know, as we've seen demographic shifts and buildings change and all these things, is to also give folks the understanding that they're part of history today. You know, everything we're doing right now is gonna be history someday. So it isn't that we're just, you know, idealizing the past or trying to hold on to the way things were. We're also working towards a new future. And so making sure that people feel empowered and excited to be part of this community and know that they're part of this historic district. So I wanted to kind of briefly jump in and talk about a overview of the 9 economic development nodes within the city of South Fulton. I'm not sure how familiar folks are with that. It's a big part of our economic development strategic plan. So these are the 9 nodes that we've determined as basically like, since the city is 94 square miles, these are all kind of like city centers in a way, right? Because we're just such a vast, big city. So, you know, you guys will be familiar with Sandtown Crossing. You've seen that great development come up with the Publix and Sandtown Pub, and there's a new salad restaurant over there. Red Oak is obviously listed on that. The Riverfront District, which is going to be a great project in District 2. The Fulton Parkway projects, the historic Hamilton Crossroads project, which already has an LCI done for it. Marissa's going to talk more about LCIs in a second. Our town center project, which I'm sure some of you have heard. You know, we've done a couple of community meetings, getting consensus from residents about what they'd like to see in the town center. And then Old National, which my counterpart, Teresa Parham, is the Main Street manager for. So the city of South Fulton has 2 Main Street programs. One is in Red Oak and then one is Old National. And actually 3 parts of Old National are part of those economic development nodes. So as we're working to build up and revitalize, those are big points for us. So Red Oak and then the Old National stuff are all redevelopments and revitalizations. And that's why we think that the Main Street approach is the best way to revitalize and reinvigorate, because these were, you know, over time have developed a reputation that is not necessarily merited, but we would like to kind of take the narrative over and be able to tell our own story as a city about what's actually going on there. And then in doing that, help revitalize and bring new businesses and a new perception to the area. So I'll let Marissa talk a little bit about, especially on National, we just got an LCI approved for them. So Marissa, you can take it away.
Oh yeah, thanks, Caitlin. So as you guys will recall, we had the historic Campbellton Crossroads LCI that was approved last year in 2020. And I believe some of you guys were even out at some of the community meetings over there. And so basically LCI stands for Livable Centers Initiative. And basically it's the placemaking project that in the final project, the final product is a master plan for a specific area. And so the LCI study will have some public engagement. It will have a land use element and focus on land use recommendation. It will have a transit development area in the study that kind of works on pedestrian access, public transit, maybe making road improvements, sidewalk improvements. And it also sometimes has design guidelines, and it's something that we can really use to spur economic development and steer development in the way that we want it to go for certain areas. So as you all know, we have the historic Crossroads LCI that's already done. And then we also are currently working on the Old National LCI that will be completed at the end of this year. And then we also were thinking about maybe doing a future LCI for the historic Red Oak area. And we're still working out the details of that one. It might kind of, you know, incorporate other municipalities, since, you know, the Roosevelt Highway corridor goes between a few different groups, but that's something that's kind of still in process right now. So I'll hand it back to you, Ms. King.
Awesome, thank you. So now I'm going to jump a little bit into more specifics of Red Oak and the Main Street program to just kind of educate you guys about what we have going on here. So this is a map of the area that we've kind of, through historic documents and consensus gathering from residents, have determined to be like the Red Oak district. The green line is going to be our commercial district. So for those of you who have been over here, that's where like the Wayfield Foods is, where the Red Oak Shopping Plaza is. There's like a Publix, Sasha Sweets Cupcakes. There's that pink building on Roosevelt Highway. So it's basically at like Buffington Road and Roosevelt Highway. And it goes down Welcome Mall. And then we've kind of drawn it to include, we have a new development coming up over on Gates Road that we're very excited about called the Courtney. So, and that's kind of where it ends over here from the commercial standpoint. And then in spending time here and just getting to like see the residential side of things and being really impressed by just the way that the homes are kept up over here. We have a lot of great mid-century modern homes. We also have things that were built like in the 40s. So there's a lot of really cute, now considered historic homes that are all part of this neighborhood. So one of the plans that we have is creating like identifying markers for folks who live in the residential district, having almost like what you would see in Grant Park or Eastlake, where folks can, probably say like, oh, I live in the Red Oak district, my family's been here for 20 years, all of that kind of great energy. We're gonna have pole banners that denote where the district starts and ends, having entrance signs, all of those things to really like solidify it as a place and make people really excited about coming here, especially as we're like in talks with businesses and artists and developing like cool placemaking things. I'm in talks with a muralist, those kind of things to really help establish the district. So the history of Red Oak, as far back as we can tell, the first postmaster was registered here in 1849. For those of you who've been here, there's a train track here that was really like what started making this kind of like a small, sleepy train side town. And then when the post office was built, that's really like back in the day was when you were a hustling and bustling place. So we've been able to develop a timeline. I've gone ahead and pulled a bunch of records on my own. And this was sort of how I got the ball rolling on all the storytelling that we needed to do. Because when you talk to people here, they have like their own stories, but getting like a bigger overarching narrative, I think is something that we're working really hard to make sure we spread throughout the community. So I went to the Palmetto Train Depot where the Historic Campbell County Society is keeping all of their records and just kind of asked them like, what do you know about Red Oak? And then they gave me a bunch of documents and I literally just like sat down and read everything that they could tag and identify as kind of being in this area. And those records then led me to a local historian who actually grew up in Red Oak and lived here in the 70s. And when I ended up talking to her, she was interested in actually making this like a whole project where she was just going to sit down and like make a concise narrative that tells like the timeline of the area. We also have a historic cemetery board. We have the Red Oak Cemetery that's on Roosevelt Highway. And those folks were also very helpful and instrumental in kind of connecting me to some prominent families in Atlanta who lived here. So the gentleman who owns the Millennium Gate in Atlantic Station, a lot of his family is actually buried in that cemetery. And so now he is willing to help like us kind of in any way that he can. So he has some artifacts and mementos and stuff. And actually in the Millennium Gate Museum, he has his own little like credenza sort of dedicated to some of the happenings in Red Oak that relate back to the Civil War. He is the Rodney Cook's Mims, so of the Mimses. So that was like a great find, and it just, you know, it was just calling people and stumbling upon him and picking up the phone and calling him, and then he happened to have artifacts and mementos. So as we're kind of like digging through this history, it's a lot of like historical societies, looking at records, talking to people who lived here, and then also just like talking with folks. That's been the best research tool I've had because, you know, for example, like I talked to Lisa, who's the local historian. Well, she knows this guy who happened to get the cornerstone for Eastern Elementary, which was the elementary school that was right down Campbell Road, and has since been, well, it fell into disrepair and then eventually had to be torn down like 10 years ago. But now we have the cornerstone for that. So when we're like placemaking and trying to find ways to tell people about the history of this area, even if the building is no longer standing, we can find artifacts that will help us to, you know, tell the story, kind of portray to people what this area was and where we're going. So here's some pictures. Like this picture of the Red Oak train depot was actually sent to me by a resident who lived here. The sanatorium picture came from newspaper articles, and then these are family photos that were actually turned over to the Campbell County Historical Society. So there's just always like little pieces of stuff floating around that we can pull together to help kind of tell the story. A little bit about Main Street and why we think it's a good fit for Red Oak and Old National. We're basically using historic preservation to help do economic development here. So I'm going to talk a little bit about one of the projects that we have going, but we are kind of using the history and the story to bring people in here and build that connection with them. So when you think about places that you like to go, you know, you want something to draw you there. Something I'm really excited about developing is like a walking tour around here. So people can go from, and you don't see it yet because we haven't gotten that walkability, but so you could go from where our historic cemetery is to our historic fire station to where the Eastern Elementary cornerstone is housed. There's ways to create all this even if we don't necessarily have the buildings anymore. So this is the 4-point approach that Main Street uses to help revitalize areas. And this is, we've established a board that actually happened at the city council meeting in December. So myself, along with the board, are going to be using these 4 points to help continue to grow and revitalize. So, you know, a big part of that was the branding. So now we have a logo. We're working on getting those pole banners, doing like the walking tour, but having it be like a branded thing so you see it when you're driving, and community events. So you might have heard about the Red Oak Art Festival that we did in October. We then did a big scavenger hunt in December. We did a storefront decorating contest, got everything over on the plaza here decorated for Christmas time. And then in April, we're going to be doing an actual Red Oak Day. And then we'll be starting a farmer's market in March. So all of these things are like drawing people here. And when they come for, you know, the farmer's market, which I think we're going to do on the lawn of AME New Life Zion Historic Church. It's actually been there since 1914. We can kind of trick people into learning about the history of the area by having these great events and getting them excited about being over in this part of town. So I'm not going to read these to you guys or go over them in great depth, but these are the principles. So basically we're going to, you know, be moving slow and steady. We're all about community partnerships, which is one of the reasons that I'm here today to talk to you folks about what we're doing. It feels very much like in talking, Sybil was kind enough to reach out to me, and in talking to her, it just feels like we have some automatic synergy built in between your commission and what we're already doing over here in Red Oak. And maybe we can take some of the momentum that we have here to kind of help spread it out to the rest of the city. But we also could use your help in identifying buildings, tagging them, marking them as historic pieces of the city of South Fulton. And then on top of doing like the Georgia Main Street program, we also go through a national accreditation project. And basically all of that's to say is like everything we're doing is going to be it's very process oriented. We're really trying to keep on top of things. There's a lot of reporting. Everything's very above board. And that's one of the benefits of Main Street, because we have all this data that we can then show to businesses as they come in to and give them that promise of like, we're here for you as a government organization. And so far that has worked out really well. We already have business owners coming in and asking us questions, checking in with us, wanting to partner with us on stuff. Landlords over here sending potential businesses to our office to talk to us. So that buzz around this being like the Red Oak District is already happening, and we're excited to keep that moving. Here's just some stats on Main Street in Georgia as a whole. It is a big producer here. I mean, when you think about all of the places that you love to go in Georgia, they're probably a Main Street program. And we want to, be part of that. We definitely think we have the historic assets here in Red Oak. I think we have like 20 something, maybe 28 historic buildings, trying to get my numbers correct. And again, that, that timeline is anything 1972 or older now. So sometimes things that we don't think about as being historic really are. And over here, especially because things haven't been as maintained, they just need a little like paint and some landscaping and some design, and they'll look so much better. And then we're also preserving a historic building. So this is basically what my job and what Teresa's job breaks down to. I'm just trying to educate and inspire the community to get excited about what we're doing over here and to help them learn about what we have. So here's some pictures that I was able to find in the Atlanta History Center archives, literally just by like searching Red Oak District. So that's the original train depot that we had here, which has since been removed. But in knowing that that asset exists, now we're working, we were able to find the blueprint for it. So we want to try and rebuild it basically. And maybe it could be like a coffee shop or even eventually an office for our program, something like that. We also used to have a drive-in movie theater over here. So that kind of helped inspired me. I'm going to do a drive-in movie this summer and kind of play off of the fact that we had a drive-in movie theater here and use that. Some more information about the Red Oak Post Office. And then this is the Red Oak Animal Hospital, which I think is just such a cute building. It was a barbecue when Dr. Tolbert purchased it, and he's since renovated it. And it's just like a cute 1950s building that he's done a great job with just some paint and some branding to really be like a cute little focal point in the community. So this is a project that Councilwoman Willis, Police Chief Meadows, Chris Tiger, Economic Development Director, City Manager, and myself have been kind of talking about, working on, figuring out how to do it the best. So a lot of this is like up in flux. It's not necessarily going to happen the way that my visioning of it is or anything like that. But basically, one of the cool projects we have right now is that the city has acquired 2 historic buildings, one being an old home that was formerly the Red Oak Renaissance Center, and one being, we haven't acquired it yet, but soon, the old Red Oak Fire Station. And so our plan is to take those 2 buildings, as well as some of the property that we have behind this house, because it sits on so many acres, and turn it into like a complex, having like a community center, having some cultural affairs involvement. And again, that placemaking we've been talking about, where we have these 2 very cool historic assets that just need some elbow grease and a little bit of vision to turn them into some really special places for community members to go and utilize. So they're all connected. There is I'd love to see this house kind of renovated to be sort of like the Reed House in Smyrna, if you're aware of it, where we have like a nice historic home for community meetings, a place to bring folks together, and then potentially have a small museum component to take those artifacts I was talking about from the Millennium Gate and give them a place for people to come visit and learn about their history and learn about the city. And then behind it, having like a small 75-person like outdoor amphitheater to do some spoken word projects, maybe do some small plays, you know, just bring in some culture and music and things that we just love to see. Those are the things we're always looking for, right? Like having that walkability factor of like, oh man, I can just walk right over to the park and see a live band. But nothing beats that. Having a walking trail, focus on getting the community moving, and then doing some community gardens. Sustainability is so important, and teaching folks how to grow and produce their own food is a great way that we can, you know, get off of our phones and get out into our yards. So I wanted to show you guys, like, here's a picture I was able to find from 1968 of the fire station. And then here's a picture I literally walked out of my office and went and took. And it's wild, like the awning is still the same. Like the door to the fire station is still the same. You know, the lettering's been removed, but like, I think there's just something so cool about maintaining and then repurposing these buildings into something useful again, instead of trying to like demolish it and build something else. So I just wanted to share that because I think it's cool. And then some kind of visioning for the fire station, potentially building like a gallery space to be able to let artists have a place to show. Art is a really easy way to make somewhere desirable for folks to come out, like a, you know, basically like a tourist attraction, or even just like a people in the city wanting to go. We're just trying to make destinations that get people excited and help rebrand. So when you're thinking about Red Oak, you're thinking about, oh, I went to that gallery show there, or oh, I went to that art festival on the lawn, or oh, I did a drive-in movie. It's just giving it the reputation that the neighborhood wants it to have, as opposed to the reputation that it might have earned without input from the community. And then eventually we'll have Councilwoman Willis really wants us to have a police precinct over here. So Chief Meadows and her and Mr. Pike and myself are working on figuring out a spot to incorporate that in, so that we almost have like a municipal complex where you can really get in touch with local government, come out, talk with us, meet with us. Again, that's the best way I'm finding to get to know the community, is just by talking to them. So here's my information. This is my email address, and you can follow the Red Oak District on Facebook and on Instagram. Social media is, you know, such an important part of living in 2022. So we try and keep those accounts updated with all the cool stuff we have going on, whether it's like a big community event or even some smaller informational sessions, just teaching folks about like economic development, small businesses, just knowing their area a little bit better. So I think that covers everything that I had to talk about, but if you guys have any questions, I'm happy to chat.
Caitlin, thank you so much for an excellent presentation. I'm hoping you're able to make this presentation to the council. It shows what opportunities are available in the Red Oak District. You've done a tremendous amount of research and put a lot of effort into this, and want to thank you for that effort. I'm hoping though that you find that the fire station may have been an asset that was brought over from Fulton County. I don't know if Chris, if you have any other information on that or not, but I think it was one of the assets that was brought over. And we might need to check on that. You may be closer to being able to do something with that building than you think.
Yeah, Chris called Anna before she left, and so we got it added to the list of stuff to be brought over. I just don't think it's like officially happened yet.
Well, actually, I think it
did.
Was brought over before.
No. Good afternoon, everybody. Christopher Pike. No, we are currently negotiating an IGA with the county. It's in the list of some other items, but that IGA hasn't been executed yet. So we still haven't taken ownership of that particular parcel, that property yet.
Well, thank you, Chris. If the Renaissance Center does not work out for your collection of historic memorabilia that you've collected, we may be able to actually move ahead with the fire station. I think that's an excellent idea and an excellent opportunity. It does have more parking there and probably would do well as a historic center. I think what you're repurposing though is probably a good use for that facility. I was not aware that the Renaissance Center was acquired, so that's great.
I think we just closed like right before the holidays. So it's kind of, we knew it was coming. It just took a little bit longer than we thought it would. And the folks over at the Fulton County Housing Authority were super helpful and let us kind of go in and take a peek. And then we've just been working, as a department and then also with electeds to kind of figure out best use, and then, just make a budget to do all of it, because it's not going to be an easy project, but I definitely think it's going to be, in terms of having a historic district. That house was built in 1920. It's a great example of a historic home. A lot of the integrity inside has been maintained. It needs some TLC, but I think we can turn it into something really beautiful for the community and also a real great destination maker.
Well, you have anticipated and answered most of my questions. So thank you. I was concerned about the budget that we need to set up for doing that, and whether or not we needed to approach the council. I'm sure that you and Chris are doing that through the economic development, but also as a historic significance of both the fire station and that home and its ability to actually potentially house the historic data for South Fulton. Now, I'm hoping that at such point in time we have a larger facility or would need a larger facility, but I think that is a great stepping stone to a larger facility down the road. And planting that seed for our group to talk that up with our variety of council people to maybe move some funding in that direction.
Yeah, and
So-
I think something that's great about historic properties is they can also be income generating. Before I was with local government, I actually managed Callan Fine Arts Center, which is a great example of a historic property that has been turned into a community center. We had art classes, wedding rentals, jazz on the lawn, all those kind of things. So we can take these historic assets and kind of turn them into something else and still make a little bit of money for the city or for a nonprofit or whatever grows out of it.
Right. Have you had a chance to investigate? You mentioned something about maybe rebuilding the Red Oak train depot. Is that possible to do that on that property, or is that not CSX?
Yeah, unfortunately, I think we would never be able to rebuild it where it actually sat because, yeah, to your point, CSX is like right there, and I don't think they want us in their stuff. But our thought was potentially in like with those shopping centers or even on some of the parcels, like building something that kind of pays homage to it. So it doesn't necessarily need to be exactly what it looked like, but having something that kind of says like, this is what was here, and leaning into it, like you see in Smyrna and other cities where they just kind of lean into some of the historical elements.
Well, thank you. That sounds great, and looking forward to more of your effort. Again, like I said, we need to talk this up with our council people to get some funding headed in your direction. And thank you and Chris for looking out for us in the historic significance of some of these structures and areas. Does anybody else have any?
Yes, I have a question. In regards to the Renaissance Center, on that street, there's another building down the street. I think it was an old school because at one point it was a voting precinct. Have you
I
given any?
think you're talking about the fire station, and it got turned into like a community after school center.
That's
So like
correct.
little brick building.
Yes,
And we used to
it's
have a public health center next to it too.
correct. It's at the far end of that street.
Yes.
Do we own that property or have given any?
That's the one we were just talking about, where we're working with Fulton County right now to acquire it and bring it over and make it a city of South Fulton asset. As a new city, we're still just trying to navigate that process of actually like acquiring property and having land to do stuff with. So we've closed on the Blue House, and then we're in the process of bringing over that fire station.
Well, what about the residential properties adjacent to the fire station, which is adjacent to the Renaissance location?
Yeah, so Pamela Harvey, who is a very active community member, lives across the street from the fire station, and then her neighbor. And I've been able to meet both of them, just like I said, because I go out there and walk around, and people just love to come out and be like, what are you doing out here? Like, what is there, this random woman? So they're both interested in the idea. Obviously, we'd have to have some like more serious conversation as things get finalized, and we're figuring out parking and logistics and flow of traffic and all of those things. But overall, the vibe of what we'd like to see there, they're on board with.
Okay.
And I don't want to speak for people also, but in casual conversation, they are excited about the energy that the Main Street program is bringing to the area.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Because I just found out they're building some, I think, $200,000 to $300,000 houses adjacent to that shopping plaza there, actually behind that shopping plaza.
Yeah, the townhomes, that land was actually, it was piped or whatever in 2007. And then when the recession hit, they just kind of threw their hands up and stopped building. So they just kind of started moving dirt one day. It's Rockford Homes is building the project. So it's going to be, like mid 200s townhouses, and they're already well underway. So we're excited to have some more housing coming into the area for sure.
All right. Thank you so kindly.
I just wanted to say, Caitlin, thank you so much for coming to our meeting today and sharing with us all of the work that you are doing in the Red Oak District. It was a pleasure meeting you and just learning more about it. Chris, thank you so much as well for your leadership too and setting that vision. I think one of the things that as a commission we are charged with doing is that education and awareness component. And so I'm hoping that we as a group, can really work with Caitlin's team to try to continue to support what we're doing in terms of our research, some of the things that we're learning about the city as a whole. I do agree we need a central place to hold all of this information that will come down the line. So I'm pretty excited about the community centers that are coming in the future, and possibly using those to kind of anchor, have a place for the work that we're doing as an entire city. I think that's one of the challenges, is that we are very spread out, as districts. And so it would be great just to have a central place to bring everything together. So thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Well, I'm a big history nerd, and I'm having a lot of fun uncovering all of this. So my office is always open if anyone wants to set a meeting to kind of pick my brain or curious about any other resources. I'm always happy to talk and educate and, put you in contact with folks that I've kind of stumbled upon along the way. I think, probably across town, we have a lot of information that's just hiding and we don't know it's there. And as a new city, we're figuring out our story, and the people who are living now are definitely part of that. And so let's all come together. I'm here to help. So please take my contact information. I'm down to meet with you guys.
Thank you.
Caitlin, I thought it was interesting that you mentioned about the Red Oak Post Office and when it started. It's a little known, I guess, that the Red Oak Post Office was the only post office inside the city of South Fulton until Fulton Industrial was annexed. So for the few folks that kind of a bit of a trivia, I guess, but it should be recognized. that is
We have
one out
some-
of 2 post offices that we have within the city.
Yeah, well, it's a while to me. I was also like on that same note, the fire station that we, no longer functioning, but that fire station served 25 square mile, like a 25-mile radius around it to basically be the fire station for this entire area. And then eventually it grew to like 120 volunteer firefighters, 4 men a night serving, literally volunteering to just go out and save lives. And then eventually they acquired an ambulance because there were no hospitals here. So that ambulance would also serve that 25-mile radius and would bring folks to Grady Hospital whenever they were hurt. So Red Oak has a very cool history, and I definitely think it's worth preserving and talking about and giving folks an understanding of just like what a different time people lived in. So I'm very excited about, doing this work and educating the community about this very special place they live in.
Well, great. Well, we really appreciate all the effort and the work that you've put forward on this. Before the trail goes cold, there are 2 other areas I would be interested in knowing something about. There was also a post office in Tell, which is now Cliftondale, and one in Stonewall there at the across from the annex. Well, it's actually catty corner to the annex on this property there. So as you have a chance, you might look into those 2. I have found very, very little information on either one, but I thought that would be a curiosity to find out something about it. The post office was actually located inside the current, I believe it's a Chevron station there, intersection of Butner and Stonewall Tail Road. So, and it wasn't until a few years back that they actually removed the actual post office boxes out of that building. So might be something that we want to put a footnote on somewhere. Marissa, did you have anything else for the HCLC today?
No, sir, that concludes our agenda. If you guys don't have any more questions or comments for us.
This is
Yes.
Carmen Ferguson. Thank you again for your excellent presentation and historical background on the area. When you mentioned about Grady being the only real hospital that you could take patients to, I immediately thought, and I don't know if he's in this Red Oak area, of Green Manor. Dr. Green, I didn't know, is that Red Oak? Do you know?
It's not, it's very close, but it's not
Oh.
technically in the district. But yeah, they have their own rich storied history over there. When
Wow.
our historian comes over, she always goes to lunch there as like she lives over in like Douglasville. So we're kind of out of the way for her. So she goes and takes a little trip to Green Manor to celebrate.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I just wanted to mention that. Yeah.
But all those areas outside, just barely outside the city, are still part of our, I guess we can call it history, because a lot of us go there and have essentially grown up going to these different places. But again, Caitlin, you've done a great job. I'm hoping you can take that presentation on the road and make it available on YouTube for people that we can direct them to somehow. And this is, again, you did an excellent job on that. Thank you. Does anybody else have anything for the good of the HCLC?
No, no questions on my behalf.
I do not.
Dr. Herring, anything from your side?
No, sir. Great presentation, great meeting.
Great. Dana, appreciate you being on board. Thank you always. And Mr. McClendon, thank you for hanging in there with us. Please, as you are still out there, I've got several other cemeteries I need to forward to you, Marissa, to get on our list. Now that you've kind of put it out there that anything earlier than 1972 is going to be potentially of historic nature, Is it any point or is it any value to put together a list of our churches? And I think we have quite a number of those churches that are actually predate 72.
Yeah, most definitely. It's great for us to collect whatever information we have. Our survey link is still open. And so for everyone and here and also all those listening online, the survey link is on our HCLC website, and it's the best way to share information that you have on items that might be historic. And we're keeping a list and maintaining it so that in the future, if we choose to do a historic book, we can have that information. And in the future, if we do a historic resources survey, we can also include that and add that to our information.
Excellent, Marissa. Great minds think alike. I was thinking of the very thing that we need to put up a possibly a historic link on the GIS that people can get to. And if they wanted to explore South Fulton, maybe have the churches identified in a certain manner and the cemeteries identified in another, and any other historical features that we can identify on a GIS link.
Yes.
So,
and you guys remember we have the story map that our GIS department did for us. I'm not sure if that's on our website, but I'll go ahead and double check and make sure that's on our website. And as time goes on, we can continue to add things to the story map.
I think that would be a great effort on our part to have that. It kind of precedes the book that we were discussing earlier.
Mhm.
And if we can get it into the virtual community out there, then we can hard copy it down the road. So if there is,
This is Carmen Ferguson again. I did have another thing that I wanted to mention. I know earlier at one of our meetings, we had talked about kind of dividing things into different areas. And we've done that to some extent with the cemeteries and churches and post offices. And I would be willing to work on a similar as it relates to our communities and neighborhoods. I may be a little selfish in saying this, but I live in a neighborhood that is close to 60 years old. And I'm sure there might be other neighborhoods that meet that same criteria, that if we could have a section, say, on community, family life, neighborhoods, et cetera. If we wanted to pursue that, I would certainly be willing to work on the committee with that. And another, and I don't know if anybody knows the answer to this, and I'll have to ask my councilman, Corey Reeves, more about it. But there is something that they put a committee together on specifically on Old National Highway and Old National. And I was going to ask how would they interface with us so that we could work together if we're doing similar things as it relates to District 5. So I don't know where I'm going with that, but if we could.
well, you've brought up a very good topic, that there might be other groups out there trying to compile histories of their area, and that we might need to reach out to them and invite them to be part of our collective group. And I think that's an excellent idea. I think also what you're maybe alluding to is that there are a lot of subdivisions and communities that have evolved inside the subdivisions that we probably could recognize. And
Right.
I think that's another excellent idea. That's a lot of effort, but appreciate anything you can do in that direction.
I'll be glad.
There is a
have a
GIS
committee to
layer
help
that used to be on the Fulton County GIS layer that identified subdivisions that
Okay.
went back quite some time. That might be a good opportunity or good source for some information.
Yeah. Okay, I'll get with you in more detail on that. Okay. Follow up with that. If anyone else wants to work with me on that, I will gladly accept.
Well,
your
we
involvement.
appreciate you taking the lead on that. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Does anyone else have anything for the good of HCLC? Marissa, I think we will, if I'm not mistaken, we will recess for February and have another meeting again in March.
Yes, sir. Our next meeting is in March. I don't remember the exact date, but it's the third Tuesday in March. And at that meeting, we had discussed doing a show and tell. So basically, if individual commissioners have research or things that they wanted to share, they could do a brief presentation and then share that with the group. That's what we had discussed. But if there are other agenda items that come up between now and that meeting, we can take it from there.
Right. Again, Marissa, Dana, thank you for your help and time and effort in putting this together. Always appreciate your involvement. And if there is nothing else for the good of the HCLC, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion that we adjourn the meeting today of HCLC.
I second.
Moved in second. Thank y'all very much for coming today and look forward to talking to you soon.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Have a
you.
good one.
Thank you.
And have